You better make sure you have the right knife, the right fork, in the right place, and drink from the right glass. Yeah, it's a long way from jelly jars and folded paper towels, but I'm telling you, this is the way to do it. And Cecilia Grimes is the person who can tell you exactly what's proper and correct. Now, this is not only good for kids to learn as they're growing up, but it's also good for business executives who may travel for their job or whatever, and they need to be impressive and look like they know what's going on. Well, I sat with Cecilia Grimes at Washington Duke Inn, and she told me just how to eat my cabbage. There are all kinds of dining experiences that require a lot of different things. Now, I didn't realize there were so many rules on how to sit down at a table and have a good meal. But every so often, you need to do it right, don't you, Cecilia?
Absolutely, and that's what we're here to do, Norm. We're here to do it right.
All right. Well, I have a lot of tools on the table, it looks like.
Lots of silverware.
So I'm silverware challenged at this point. So the first thing I want to do, of course, is my napkin.
That's true. But before you do that, Norm, let's just talk a little bit about the protocols of the napkin, because the napkin is really a very important thing.
Okay.
It is the signal that the meal begins. And the reason that one doesn't immediately take the napkin after being seated is that often a host or hostess will have something in mind. That might be an introduction of a guest, that might be a blessing, that might be a welcome to the crowd or the guest or whatever. So the host or hostess signals the meal begins by lifting the napkin. So let's suppose that
we're ready.
Ms. Hostess has lifted her napkin, and then you two, Norm.
Wait till she lifts hers before I lift mine.
And that's what we want you to do. So you would take that and you would put it in your lap.
Take the ribbon off.
You take the ribbon off, and that's your ribbon. You just put it right down. And the main thing that you need to remember about this, Norm, is that this napkin correctly should be placed against your waist with the fold at the top. I'm going to let you mimic this for me, but see, this is folded in two. We have a very wrinkled napkin here. And we want you to place that in your lap with the fold toward you.
Okay.
Now, that's not, no, the fold.
You said toward me. Oh, toward
next to your waist.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
that's good, the fold.
Got it.
Now, the reason that you do that, Norm, I mean, it's not just like an arbitrary thing, is that, I'm going to lift it from your lap, is that when you use a napkin, you are supposed to lift the top and wipe your fingers in between.
Oh.
Okay, and then replace it so that when you have your hand in your lap, you don't have cocktail sauce on your sleeves. Norm, I don't want you to have cocktail sauce on your sleeves.
I don't want to have any on those.
All right.
All right, well, I
So
just learned something there.
About napkins. That's
Now, this
napkins.
does not pertain to paper towels.
No, it does not.
Okay.
Yes.
We're at a formal dinner here.
We're at a formal dinner, that's correct.
All right. Well, we're ready to go.
All right, Norm, I bet you heard from your grandmother, as many people tell me in my work, that they have learned this one little rule which serves them very well. Work from the outside in.
Okay.
All right? So that tells you that you are going to either have to begin right here or right there. I would say right here, and here is why. This is a seafood fork. Notice that it's little points. And this would be for a, what would you suppose?
I would use that for oysters.
Oysters, that would work for the seafood course. So would a shrimp cocktail, which is more commonly served. And this would be the seafood fork. This would be used first course. It would be placed on the plate after you have used the fork and consumed that first course, and it would be removed by the server. So it would go away. The fork would go away with the plate.
Okay.
You might also want to remember this, Norm. A server will serve you from the left, always from your left.
Okay.
But a server will remove from the right.
Okay.
All right. So a server will always come over this way to take your plate away. And this cocktail fork would have been used with the first course. Actually, what would have happened, Norm, a server would have come from the left, placed a little plate here, shrimp cocktail, oysters, clams, whatever it is that you would have for that first course, and you would select this fork, use that, and when you were finished, you would put it on the plate at about what would be 4 o'clock, as if this were a clock, Norm.
Right.
This would be 3 o'clock, this would be 4 o'clock. The reason is that the server, once again, is going to come removed from the right.
Okay.
So off first course.
Now let's talk about the plate though right quick too before we get
Certainly.
into all the other utensils. There's something special about this place setting. This is not what I'm going to have dinner on.
No, it's not. If you look, Norm, if you just feel around that, that's
Beautiful.
raised, yes. It's a very lovely plate, and I particularly like it because it's very similar to the first class plate that was used on the Titanic. Isn't that interesting? But anyway, that's a place plate. And the reason that we have a place plate is so that when you come, as you did, Norm, and you sit down, what do you think? Beautiful?
Oh, absolutely.
Looks lovely.
Yes.
All of this sparkle is supposed to make you feel like you're in an exquisite setting, and to enhance your experience. Everything is lovely. This begins that. This is only set before you to replicate a place setting. You're not going to have food on that.
But I will have dishes on it because you just said the cocktail would be set on
That
this,
is
right?
correct.
Okay.
That will be moved. And also, in this particular case, Norm, I have a double place setting.
Okay.
I have this, which is a silver,
Okay.
sometimes called a charger. Once again, here's why we have that. Because you never have a place setting that is bare. You always want to have that covered. And so a well-trained waitstaff will, without exception, always place on top of or remove and immediately place in that space something to cover it.
Okay, so we've had our cocktail. They've
Yes.
taken away the cocktail. Now we're ready for the next course.
Look and see what you think that would be, Norm.
Let's see. Starting over here, oh, it would be the soup.
The soup, that's
Yes.
correct. This is a soup spoon. Notice that the shape is oval.
Okay.
All right, and the correct way to hold the soup spoon is more fingers underneath than on top. Sometimes in dining tutorials I have little 10-year-olds that want to hold it like this, and I say, no, 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 this is correct, like this. So let's pretend that this soup has come, and of course, Norm, I would have to come around here to correctly place this soup before you on your left.
This is clam chowder, by the way. I'm not allowed to have that on my current diet, but being as I'm doing a special program, I'm exempt.
Well, here we are, and here's your soup spoon.
Yes.
And so you would lift that, and you would use that to spoon away, Norm.
Spoon.
Always away. You would spoon always away.
Okay, now I'm left-handed.
Well, you would
It's
still...
okay. It's okay to switch.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I didn't know if there was a thing about, well, if it's on the left, you can use your left?
No.
Oh, okay.
In fact,
so we're doing this way.
That's correct.
Okay.
The main thing that you need to remember is that you sip out of the side of the spoon, because if you sip out of the end of the spoon, do that. Look how your elbow has to come, so it's very much more elegant. It looks much, no, not the little finger as the Romans did, but as you would do from the side. Now, here is the one protocol about fine dining, Norm. This is a tip.
Okay.
This is the one mistake that I see most people making, and that is for resting when the spoon is placed in the actual bowl. That is incorrect. So easily can do this. Also, you need to remember that resting allows your spoon to be placed underneath, right there, underneath. And resting, of course, is drinking a beverage, chatting with your guest, or simply resting, not in the process of putting food in your mouth. So this is the correct placement for this, underneath on the saucer rather than there. See that incorrect a lot.
Oh, sure.
But we don't want to do that. Also, when you're finished, Norm, once again, at what part on the clock?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. And that is because the server is going to be coming to you from
the right.
From the right, and he or she will simply remove this, and off it will go. And there you have 2 courses. Now, often, Norm, you will have a fish course. That's what's set up next.
Right.
See this? Pick up that.
So this would be a fish fork.
Fish fork and
And
fish.
this is the deboner.
The fish knife, and see the
Right.
points.
Right.
Yes, that's right. So that would be used for the 3rd course, and that could be any little small fish serving. If it were a rainbow trout, of course, you would have the need to lift the bones, but can be a deboned fish, little patty of some kind or some nice offering. When you are finished, once again, regardless of whether you're right-handed or left-handed, Norm, and this is important because the fork and the knife will once again go at 4 o'clock because the server is going to come and remove that from the right. But remember that you put them together just as they are on the plate. In other words, that would be incorrect.
Oh.
That would be backwards because they come together just as they are, 4 o'clock. And the blade is always facing you. That's correct. And off that would go for the third course.
All right.
Now,
I'm almost full.
the next course might be confusing to some people because often in a fine dining situation, the next course, Norm, would be a sorbet. No spoon, no indication that it is coming other than the fact that you have had fish, and the next course would need to have a clean palate to be truly enjoyed. So sometimes, oftentimes I should say, a sorbet would come. There's no spoon for a sorbet because a sorbet is frozen fruit juices, often raspberry sorbet, or you sometimes see blueberry sorbet, a lemon sorbet, or lime sorbet. But the spoon is served with that serving because the spoon is chilled.
Ah, so it won't stick to it.
So there would be no need for the spoon to be on the table. It wouldn't work. So
Now, during the course of the dinner so far, we've gone through the basic appetizer selections, the soup, the
appetizer,
fish.
soup, and then we did in a formal setting, we would have fish.
Okay, so
Then-
we've done all of that. Now, let me ask you this. Here we have a lot of glasses here. Now, do I want water with all of these things because the hostess has not drank wine yet?
I suppose that you would want to have different beverages with different courses. This is a sherry glass.
Right.
Small. We know that sherry is concentrated, so you only need a little 2-ounce goblet for that. This is used at one of 2 times during the beginning of the meal. Oftentimes a hostess will say bon appetit and introduce a guest. They might use that for a toast. This would be the beverage you would use for that. Otherwise, this sherry would often be poured and served along with the soup course. Along with the soup course. So that would be the place for that.
Just a little something sweet to go along with
Just a
the
little
soup.
something sweet. Now, the next glass, slightly larger, would be a white wine glass. And as you know, goblets always vary from pattern to pattern. But this would be the white wine offering, and that would go with the fish course.
Yes.
All right? So that would be for that.
Now, that's another reason why the sorbet is served, because as she said, it cleans the palate. So if you've had a white wine and fish, you want to be ready for the big deal.
That's right. And that would be this particular goblet for the red wine. Often red wine goblets have larger bowls. This particular pattern doesn't have one, but that's the next offering, and that would be with the main course. And of course, what you said, you made reference to earlier, the water goblet, which is right here, and it is available all through the meal. Now, this little slender goblet is the dessert wine, and it is over and behind all of these other wines because that will be the last wine that will be poured, and it will accompany the last course.
Now, that could be a champagne flute as well.
That is a champagne flute, sometimes called a champagne flute, and sometimes champagne certainly is served with a dessert course. So that's an array of glassware to go along with all of this.
We've had our sorbet. We're ready for the main course.
We're ready for the main course. And once again, we're working from the outside in, and we have a very large dinner fork and an equally large dinner knife.
Right.
And this would be the pair of utensils you would use for your main course. You would cut those in small bites. In fine dining, it is preferred that you do this slowly because this meal is about not only fine dining and wonderful food, it's about the companionship and the conversation and all of those kinds of things that go along with a meal of this sort. So
Now,
if
you just did something that I wanted to ask you about.
all right.
Because in certain places in the world, people don't hold the fork the same way.
Right. I held the fork and the knife when I was doing this to pierce or to cut, for instance, a piece of chicken. I would do that. Notice how I'm holding this.
Right.
When I teach this in classes, Norm, here's the way I tell diners to do, to put their palm face up, put the fork at a diagonal, and make a fist and turn it over so that your index finger comes together at the end of the tines and where the handle begins. That gives you leverage. Same thing is also true of the knife. Now, in American style dining, which is what your reference was about, we cut the food, we place the knife at the top of the plate with the blade toward us, and we switch over to the right hand. Except you, Norm, of course, would do it exactly opposite,
Right.
switching over to the left hand. That's American style. There's a lot of give and take, back and forth, and it does appear noisy and laborious to people in other cultures. And so there also is another style of dining called continental style. Placement of the knife and the fork in the hand is just the same, but there's no switching back and forth. The diner would hold the fork with the tines always down. And for instance, you would cut a piece of chicken or a piece of beef or a piece of pork, and you would pierce it, and you could use the knife as a pusher. For instance, if you had a bit of potato, you could push that on top. Actually, it's a little bit like creating a little stairwell where you just pile the food. And then you bring it to your mouth like that, turning around backwards, sort of. And that's continental style. There's no back and forth. Very, very elegant, as compared probably to our American style, which is back and forth and back and forth and
Constantly.
back and forth, whereas in the continental style, they simply very easily move from one bite to